Hey folks, Ace TCG here, and in today's video we have another BT6 PvP. Now I'm sorry that this has taken a while. I've been extremely busy with work, some things have been moving around, and with that, and also I've been trying to edit this video. This video took me a lot longer to edit than normal, but you'll see why. I've added some images too. So there are some other changes in this video as well. So like I said, I have the pictures come up. You may also notice that the audio is slightly different. This person who has asked in my comments, and thanks to all your lovely feedback, has suggested that I add music. So this is the person, Soul Simba. Thank you very much for the lovely comment. It was extremely useful. And I hope that the background music is what you're looking for. But in this video, yeah, we've got on the left a Shine LordKnightmon list that I put together, which was just supposed to be a little bit of fun. I opened a LordKnightmon event pack alt art, which it made me want to play the deck. And on the right, we've got Danny from Locals playing Gankoomon. So let's get into it. And thank you for all of the support and have a great day. So as we can see here, we're just setting up the cards here. Danny's rolled the high roll, so Danny's going to go ahead. Danny's going to go first. My hand's not looking too bad, to be fair. I've got a TK and a start, but Danny's going to start by hatching the Piddomon from BT6, and then he goes into the ToyAgumon from BT2, and then Digivolves into the Greymon, which has the effect of while this Digimon is reboot, you gain Jammon, and that ToyAgumon gives Jammon, so that works perfectly. I'm going to hatch a Pickmon and then Digivolve into a Starmon, and then I go into the 1 Digivolve cost blocker for yellow, Piddomon. And then I think here I'm just going to go ahead into a TK because I'm just missing a few pieces and I want to make sure that I have that security of having 3 memory. We get a RizeGreymon, a Starmon, Patamon, Unimon, and Minimicmon. The issue with this here is that it's all very low DP. I'm pretty sure I choose the RizeGreymon there with the on Digivolve effect to play a Tamer for hand for free. No one play effects from that will go. But I have a TK and carry in hand anyway, so that won't matter. Then he's going to draw for turn, and then he Digivolves in his stack into a Gogmamon, which came on BT4, very nice SR, that's actually needed now. And then he hard plays a Chikurimon, which just came on BT6 as a really cool security effect to Digivolve 1. So I've just got this RizeGreymon here, and I want to get my Tamers out because, of course, I'm playing Shine still. So I use the Rise effect to play the TK and Carry, which is a great Tamer that came out in BT6. And then I overvalue the actual potency of his Chikurimon there, and because of that, I'm going to get punished now. So I swing with Rise, use the Tamer effect to kill the Chikurimon, and in the security, Danny hits a Ultimate Flare, which is pretty darn painful for me. And now we're about to see what inexperience in decks can do, and this is why testing is really important. I haven't played against the black deck a lot, so I'm going to hard play Unimon, not knowing what Gankoomon does. Danny accidentally goes to 6 memory here instead of 5. I think it's because the other blockers cost 6 on hard play. But he just goes into a Gankoomon, and we put him to 2 instead of the 1, but it's not that big. Gankoomon just removes that Unimon, and as you can see, Gankoomon's got a ton of inheritables. It's got reboot and jamming and plus power. So he swings into the security, hits a Mimicmon, which again isn't too much. We know that there's not a lot in my security that's going to be able to deal with that. And now Danny's in a really good position because I have next to nothing. I know in my hand I have no rookies as well, so I'm going to struggle to build and raising. He just hard plays that Greymon that we saw earlier that gives jamming as an inheritable. And then a little misplay comes up here where I believe that I can use the TK and carry effect because I'm not used to actually attacking security early. But I still just go with the Wyvern's Breath to be able to remove that Gankoomon, giving it minus 15k, and then that Pagumon effect's going to go off, where he can look at the top card of his deck, and because it's a black Shademon, he's actually able to add that to hand, which is a really nice value card for him. He hatches a Kapurimon, and then he just goes into a Chikurimon here that we saw earlier with that amazing security effect to Digivolve 1. And he's in a really good spot here because he can actually just choose to Digivolve on top of that Greymon if he wishes to, or he can build in his raising area if he wants to play safe. But he just goes with the Gogmamon, which we saw earlier, and this is really nice because he only has 1 inheritable, but because of its effect as well, if he wanted to give 1k to whatever he Digivolves to in the future, he can, because it's Digiverse 1. He Digivolves into a Tankmon on the raising, which is a really cost-effective champion for him, really cool. And then he goes ahead and goes into the BT2-041, which has blocker and reboot, and I am in a position where I absolutely hate to see that card, because even if I can build up blocker and reboot is just super painful for me, so I'm gonna have to try and find a way to remove that, and I just used one of my only option removal cards. One thing that you're actually going to see a lot throughout this video is myself as a yellow player asking how much DP that card has, because as a yellow player, there's nothing more annoying than playing against a black deck that gains power, because you're used to having staple cards that actually just remove cards for like 11. You look at 11, you think, oh cool, and then they go, oh, it's actually 18 million because I have this and this. So I just hard play a Knightmon, and then Danny goes to his turn. He's playing a bit safe with the Tankmon and Raising, but he checks with the LordKnightmon, and he gets a Starmon there, which it doesn't really matter anyway because it has jamming because of that Greymon. I don't know if I would personally have been overly careful with the Tankmon and the Raising, but I can't see Danny's hand, so I don't know what situation he's actually in here. We can see that he's got the Fisted Onslaught there, which is just a super good card in general. It looks like he's really tempted to use that there, because right now, because I have the memory from the Tamers as well, I can recover super well, and then he's played against yellow quite a bit, so he knows that, so he's going to remove that with that Iron Fisted Onslaught, which just deletes all of my Digimon with the highest play cost, which right then is only going to be that Knightmon. I gained 2 more memory from the Kaori at the start of the turn, so I go to 6, and then I just hard play another Knightmon because I have one in hand. I don't have a rookie here. I'm in a bit of a sticky situation, but if I can get this out and then go into a LordKnightmon, then I'm Gucci. He swings with that LordGreymon that has jamming and power gain again. And then he's just going to go ahead and he's going to play a Gogmamon in his raising area. So I draw a rookie finally, and my Knightmon was able to actually survive there, so I'm thinking now, right, so I actually have options here. So I go into Knightmon, draw a card here, and then I also have Valdur in hand, so I'm thinking check security, play the other Knightmon that I have in hand, remove that, and then go into my Valdur Arms, and Danny decides that's not going to happen. Here's a 12k Craniumon, and because you only have 2 Digimon out, LordKnightmon is only going to be 12k because it's other Digimon, not just itself. And now I'm in a sticky situation again because I don't have any Megas, but I'm going to try and raise in my racing area. I go into a Mimicmon and then into a RizeGreymon. I can potentially get more value by getting out that carry, and if I'm lucky and I'm able to actually get a Mega at the start of my turn, then I'm going to be in a good position. Danny draws, plays careful again with that Gogmamon, swings with the LordGreymon, just gets a Piddomon. It's doing work against me. I'm in a really bad situation here. So if I was Danny in this situation, I don't know if I would have raised the Gogmamon, because then I could just go into a Gankoomon, remove that Knightmon, and then all I've got is a RizeGreymon coming up, and I've got 2 Megas. But to be fair, he really just does have time to take his time here. He could get overly punished by me hitting a bomb in my security and then removing other potential. So he just plays a Agumon, which we saw earlier, that gives reboot to whatever he plays. And then he plays a Mechanorimon, which again is another card that we hate to see when you're playing quite a rushy deck. But I'm not, I'm playing control, so I don't mind actually seeing it right here. If I'm able to get a Mega, then I'm doing it. But I draw for turn and do not get a Mega here. I have no way to actually draw cards here because the Portsmon's current effect is going to give me 1 memory on play, not a +1 draw. So I just use the RizeGreymon effect to go into another TK and carry just because. And then I'm looking at my hand. I'm in a pretty bad situation. I'm thinking about scooping. And I'm doing what some players do, is I'm starting to think, oh, maybe I should have added more rookies, more Megas. If you do that during your play, it can really like draw you away. But we're going to start game 2 here. Looking at my hand, I'm in another tough situation. I am missing another rookie again. I've decided to go first, so I just hard play the TK Takaishi. Look at my security, I got a Knightmon, LordKnight, RizeGrey, Valdur Arms, and Mimicmon, but no rookie, and that's what I really wanted right there, because it would have fixed everything for me. Decide to take the LordKnightmon here, just because I might want it later if I could maybe top a rookie on the next turn. Worst case scenario here, I'm going to have to hard play an ultimate, then go into LordKnight, which is actually quite a play that you can do in LordKnightmon, so I'm annoyed, but I'm not game-ending annoyed. He's going to go into the Piddomon again that we've seen, and the Chikurumon, which we saw earlier with that security effect. It hasn't bombed yet, but it's pretty cool. And then he has a Shademon here, which is a really cool card for black. It comes up in your security, and you can just play it. And then he plays his own Taikamiya, which is the most annoying card to play against if you are playing yellow, because it just gives a constant plus power to all of his Digimon. I'm going to hard play a Knightmon here. Like I said, I want to do that play where I'm going to go now into LordKnightmon, and then I'm going to be able to play additional things and get super good value. So he raises up his Shademon here. And I think he's just looking at his hand and he's thinking, what can I do? He has memory to play with, because if he has tie here, giving him that additional, but obviously I've just put him to 4 anyway with that Knightmon. So just looking at some of Danny's plays here, he decides to hard play a Greymon, and then he goes into a Metal Greymon here, and I think that's just because he really wanted to have a blocker up in case I was going to do anything spicy. I drew for turn and drew another TK, but that's not what we want to see because I want a rookie, but it's okay, we move. Digivolve into LordKnightmon, swing with the Lord Knight, and I'm going to use the LordKnightmon effect to play out the Knightmon, and then the Knightmon's going to be able to give 4,000, minus 4,000 to the Shademon. But Danny decides to block with that Chaosmon, so it just doesn't get destroyed. And then that Piddomon effect's going to go off, and he's going to look at the top card of deck and add it to hand. I Digivolve here into a little LordKnightmon, and this is a big misplay if you are playing against a black deck, because they have the Iron Fisted Onslaught, which would just kill both of these. So it probably could have been better for me to go into something else here. Super risky play here. I have 2 Tamers in hand. I could have just hard played a Tamer. Also, not only that, he has Gankoomon, so I probably should have just left the Knightmon, because if he wanted to Gankoomon, then it would have just used its on-play effect to just remove the Knightmon. He uses the black memory boost here, and he gets a Craniumon, Chikurumon, Iron Fisted Onslaught, and a Shademon there. He chooses the Chikurumon so they can Digivolve into it now, and then he just super punishes here and does exactly the play what I was talking about. He Iron Fisted Onslaught and gets the super good value of removing 2 megas from 1 options card. So super punished, but we have to not stick on that. So start my turn, I draw an actual Pulsemon, and I actually decide to hard play it here so that I can get the value drawing it, in hopes that I draw another rookie down the line. I then Digivolve into a Unimon, and all my rookies are flooding in now. I've got them for days. Go into the RizeGreymon for 3, and then I can use that RizeGreymon's burst effect of Digiburst 2, and then I can play a Tamer from hand, get the value of the TK Takaishi here. So super good effective value plays here. I'm looking at it, I've got a RizeGreymon, Blinding Ray, Knightmon, Mimicmon, and Valdur. Now this is a bit of a weird one because I don't want to take a multicolored card because I don't want to self-damage here. So I just take the Knightmon anyway because it's going to be good value if I can hard play it for free later with that LordKnightmon effect. And now I'm just looking at my hand, I'm like, I'm actually in a pretty good position. I kind of want to not give Danny too much memory, but because he has that Takaishi anyway, it doesn't particularly matter. So I'm tempted to play my Tamer here, but I just decide to go with the Piddomon here. Danny then goes to the 3 memory because of that Takaishi effect. He draws for his turn, and again he's just going to go into a WarGreymon, what we saw earlier with that blocker and reboot effect. He checks security with security +1 because of that ultimate inheritable, and I get a Valdur and a Piddomon, but he actually has jamming because he has the Greymon, which is just super good for him. He uses the black memory boost to gain 2 memory here, and then goes into a Greymon for 2. He's just looking at his hand, and he's just regarded a pretty good card against me. So he Digivolves into Metal Greymon, which is the one that's giving him security plus, and then he reboots with the more Greymon, but he actually has a Tumon in hand, which is the rookie that's going to stop me from gaining memory from options cards and such, or anything outside of Tamers, which is just a good card in general. Again, asking Danny how big that WarGreymon is. Now that as a yellow player you have to do that, and I decided to just go into a Wyvern's Breath and remove that. I want to remove big things for him. I'm in quite a good position here because if he decides to go into his Gankoomon, he's only going to remove that Piddomon, but he decides to swing with that Metal Greymon. It hits a Blinding Ray here. It has jamming anyway because of that Greymon effect. But that's a little bit of a risky play from Danny here because now that Metal Greymon's at risk of, if I go into a Mega, I can just straight up attack into it. I can't swing with the RizeGreymon into the Metal Greymon because it's actually AK because of that Takaishi, which is just super annoying and super good for Danny. And that's why it's super frustrating as a yellow player to have to deal with that. Danny's just looking through his hand and he decides to go with that Tumon that I was talking about earlier. As I said then, this is just a super good card for Danny because it just stops my Blinding Rays from going off, but he decides to then Digivolve into a Tankmon anyway, building up a little bit of pressure here, and then he goes into that black memory boost again that we saw earlier, and he gets an Ultimate Flare, Tumamon, Metal Greymon, and a Shademon. It's interesting to see what he's going to actually take here. He decides to go with that Metal Greymon, he must be missing that ultimate, or he can just go on top of that Tankmon. He reboots the Metal Greymon here just from that Metal Greymon effect itself. I hatch a Pickmon and then Digivolve into a BushiAgumon here. And I actually have some interesting plays that I can go into. I can see that I have that RizeGreymon and a Shine and Tamers in hand as well, so I could go into the RizeGreymon and then into a Tamer and then go into Shine, which is going to be able to remove some things here. And it looks like that's the play I'm actually going to go with. So I go into RizeGreymon and I decide to play the TK and carry from this. I don't want to play the other TK because I don't get to actually get the on-play effects because of that RizeGreymon here. So now I'm on 0, I'm looking at his thing, and one thing I'm not taking into account is that power bonus that Takaishi is actually giving. So once I do acknowledge that, I'm in a bit of a sticky situation where I actually have to think super hard, but I decide to go into the ShineGreymon, put Danny to 4, use its effect to just straight up remove that LordKnightmon, giving it minus 12k all in all. So this ShineGreymon's actually showing a lot of pressure, so Danny's going to hatch a Koromon, go into a RizeGreymon promo, and then he goes ahead and checks security with the Tankmon, which is a pretty decent play because it's actually going to put me on really low security here, but it also puts that Tankmon at like potential threat. He digivolves into a Mechanorimon champion for 3, which is a pain, but then uses his black memory boost to gain 2 memory and go into LordKnightmon, which means that it's still Danny's turn, and then he can play additional things if he wants to here. It's nice because he actually has an ultimate in his raising area, and he can just do some pretty cool shenanigans there in later turns, because it means that he can just raise and then go into a Gankoomon at some point. But he decides to hard play a Chaosmon, which is a bit of a pain for him because it's only got 1000 DP, but I raise my BushiAgumon, I gain 2 memory at the start of my turn because of that TK and carry, which is nice because I'm getting super good value, and this is what I want. I want to try and get as many of those out as I can, because now I'm in a situation where if I can punish him, then it's cool. So I decide to swing with my ShineGreymon into Tankmon, and then I go, oh, 1 sec, maybe I don't want to do that. And then I decide to swing with the RizeGreymon into Tankmon, and then Danny goes, because he's a nice player, he goes, just to let you know, this Takaishi is making my Tankmon 7k, so your Rise will die. And I say, thank you very much, Danny, for letting me know. I forgot about that. So I swing with the ShineGreymon, and then that Pickmon effect is going to give minus 1k to the Chaosmon, but then Danny again points out here, because of that tie, that Chaosmon is actually going to be 2000, but then I just go, okay, no worries, I'm going to use the TK and carry and give it another minus 1000, and that's me getting very frustrated because I'm making a few misplays there because of that tie, but again, thanks to Danny for just allowing me to do that. Check security with a BushiAgumon. I'm a little bit worried here that he still has 5 security, so I swing with a RizeGreymon here too for 7k, and he just gets a Greymon there. Really good here. I just decide to hard play a Knightmon, get even more value, because if he goes into a Gankoomon now, he's only going to be able to again destroy one thing, being that Knightmon if I do there. So he raises his LordKnightmon here, and I think he's in a bit of a tough situation, because even if he has that ultimate flare in hand, but even if he ultimate flares my ShineGreymon, BushiAgumon's the last card that it'll go down to, and Bushi's actually 5 play cost, so it won't get destroyed from that Digivolve. He's going to swing with his LordKnightmon into security, and he hits a RizeGreymon, so he's perfectly safe from that one. Nothing to worry about like massively there. And then he decides to hard play a Chaosmon, and then he just goes into another Mechanorimon here to try and slow down some of the aggression that I have. I start my turn, just, you know, getting everything ready, gaining that 2 memory again from that TK and carry, which is coming in very clutch, and I hatch a Pickmon again. I decided to go with Pickmon here just because I'm playing LordKnight as well as the base. I go into a Pulsemon here just to get that draw, and then I gain 2 memory because of Blinding Ray, because I have no security. So Blinding Ray's effect has a comma after it says trash the top card, which means that it's not actually a cost, it's just a condition of using the card. So I hard play a Starmon here, and then hard play another, giving it minus 3 and then minus 4k to that Mechanorimon, meaning that now my cards aren't going to get blocked, which is important for me, because ShineGreymon's going to swing for 2 security checks here because of that RizeGreymon effect, and then I'm just acknowledging some of my effects. So Pickmon's going to give minus 1k to that LordKnightmon, checking 2, so Gankoomon and then Gankoomon, but because of ShineGreymon's effect to gain power, it doesn't matter. I swing with Rise for 7 and then swing with the Knightmon for game. So pretty lucky there with some of my plays, but we're going to start up at game 3 here. I'm pretty sure that Danny's decided to go first this time, which we're perfectly fine with. And again, I'm looking at my hand, no rookie to be seen, and I'm going to cry. But this is where you really have to start not concentrating on, oh, maybe I didn't build it, the deck right, because you need to do that after the game. Concentrate on what's at hand. Danny hatches a Pagumon, goes into Toy Agumon, and then Digivolves into that Tankmon, and it puts me to 1. Really sticky situation again here. Don't know particularly what to do, but I'm just going to hard play that TK and carry so I can get value. If he decides to raise and swing into me, I can start getting more memory. But he goes into a LordKnightmon for 3, putting him to 0 here, so he's ready, and then he hard plays a black memory boost, which is, again, good value for him. From that black memory boost, he's going to get a Tumon, a Craniumon, Gogmamon, and Taikamiya. I think I pronounced all of those right. I sure hope I do. I'm getting a lot better at it. And he decides to take the Gogmamon ultimate. I'm going to go ahead and I hatch my one-of Koromon and Digivolve into a BushiAgumon, and I'm elated that I can actually play the game. I Digivolve into a Unimon for the cost of 2, and then I go ahead and go into a Knightmon for the cost of 3, which is super good because I'm in a really potent position. I think that Danny has his Tamer out, but he doesn't, so he corrects me from putting him to 3 back to 2. Which is really good. Always nice to play against players who are just really kind of more on the game about this stuff at times, because especially when you're frustrated. But he uses that black memory boost delay effect to gain 2 memory, and then he digivolves into a Gankoomon because this is good pressure for him. He gets 1 TK and Takaishi and 1 RizeGreymon. He's gaining that plus security check from that LordKnightmon inheritable, which is just super potent. And then he goes ahead and he hard plays a Agumon. So really cool, and then he reboots because of the Agumon effect that he has underneath the Gankoomon. I'll gain 4 memory at the start of my turn, which is just crazy. So that's because of those TK and carry effects. So I raise my Knightmon here, and then I just ask Danny how much power is Gankoomons on, because I don't really still know a lot of what the cards do for the black deck. I just want to make sure. So I go into a ShineGreymon and put 1 of the 4Ks on the Agumon and 1 on the Gankoomon, but it doesn't really matter because I'm going to go into a Chaosmon Valdur and give minus 14k to that Gankoomon. That Gankoomon's inheritable from the Paggamon's going to go off, and he gets to add a card to hand from the top of deck. Then he then goes ahead and hatches a Kapurimon and goes into that Agumon. That I do know what it does. I do know what some of the black cards do from all the sets, but this BT6 set I haven't seen a lot of the black deck yet, and just in locals in general it's not really a deck that's played a lot outside of Danny and maybe a few others here, but yeah, really cool cards. We can see that he has the Iron Fisted Onslaught. Yeah, I struggled with that one a little bit here, but he digivolves into a Shademon for the cost of 2 here, building up that, and then he decides to use the Iron Fisted Onslaught. Now I'm going to go to 10 here, not only because I'm going to gain 3 memory from the on deletion effect of Valdur Arms, but I'm also gaining 4 memory from the effect of that TK and carry. I draw for turn and then hatch a Pickmon, digivolving into a Stormon here, which is just a super good card in general, and then I digivolve for the cost of 1 into a Piddomon. I'm thinking to myself here, I really wish I could climb up, but I'm missing ultimate, so I hard play a Starmon and then digivolve into a Unimon for 2. I draw a Mimicmon and I'm like, right, I have a handful of ultimates. It's time. I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet, aren't I? I'm gonna have to do it like Yugi from Yu-Gi-Oh style. I'm just gonna have to hard play this LordKnightmon. So for 13, I decide to hard play a LordKnightmon here, and like this is a play that actually can happen quite often. But most of the times that we've seen this happen in locals, the person who hard plays the mega usually wins, because it means now my opponent has to deal with that mega. Doesn't matter that I gave him 9 memory, but it's gonna matter now because he's going into a Gogmamon for 3, and I'm starting to regret it because I'm like, oh no, I've just gave this black deck 9 memory. But he actually plays a black memory boost and he gets a RizeGreymon, a Shademon, a Greymon, and a Gankoomon here. He takes the Gankoomon, and now I'm starting to think, I'm actually not in quite a bad situation. He's back down to 3 memory. He's used the black memory boost and he's only got an ultimate out. He could go into that Gankoomon, but because I've got the Unimon too, it's only going to remove that Unimon here. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm talking to Danny now and I'm like, don't you wish you could use that DK from the memory boost? And Danny's like, I sure do, but you know, I can still do things. And he's very much right. You can definitely still do things in Pack-a-Punch here. But yeah, that's also the LordKnightmon that I pulled. That's the main reason that I threw the deck together. I just wanted a fun deck to go off. So of course I decided to play the most fun deck ever, LordKnightmon, which everyone loves, lol. But Danny's going to use the Gogmamon effect here once to give plus 2000 to that Digimon until the end of my next turn. Which is just a super good, nice effect, really. Good against me, because it just means that his cards are super bulkier, so it's harder for me to like remove them. But he decides to go into that Alt Art Gankoomon, which is just super really beautiful, and quite cheap too, which is really nice. And he removes that Unimon with that when Digivolve effect. Because I'm on lower security again, I'm going to gain plus 4 memory, which is ridiculous. I swing with LordKnightmon, and then I use its effect to play a Knightmon from hand for free, which again is just absolutely bonkers. I'm going to then go ahead and Digivolve into a LordKnightmon on top of that Knightmon that I just played for free, drawing the ShineGreymon of course from the top of my deck there. But all in all here, it doesn't actually matter that much because I have the Valdur in hand, and I'm thinking of just doing that. I'm asking Danny what the power of that Gankoomon is, because I've gave it -4 from the Knightmon earlier, but he used Gogmon's effect. But I'm going to use Valdur to just remove that Gankoomon, and Danny's going to start his turn by going into a Koromon, hatching that and the raising, and then he decides to Digivolve now into a Chaosmon. Looking at Danny's situations now, he's definitely in a little bit of a sticky situation because I have quite a wide board and I'm going to gain a lot of memory at the start of my next turn too. So he decides to use that black memory boost delay effect here, and then he uses Iron Fisted Onslaught to remove the Valdur arms. This is a little bit of a misplay here, and it's the play that I talked about the same with Hammer Spark in my last video. I'm going to gain a lot of memory now anyway, so him actually using that delay effect when it could have been more useful later could have been a bit of a waste here, but it's nothing too major, just little things to improve on for people or to point out. I go into the RizeGreymon and then draw a Piddomon and Digivolve into that Piddomon, being super grateful that I actually got it. I hard play a TK Takaishi here, which is a bit of a misplay because I have a RizeGreymon there ready to burst, but I get a Piddomon, a ShineGreymon, and a Blinding Ray in my security, and I decide to take the Shine here just so I can go into it if he decides to do other things in the potential future. I already have one, so I probably could have took something else, maybe the Blinding Ray here. I go into a Mimikmon, and then I actually drew a TK there from that Digivolve, so I get super lucky and I decide to take the other Blinding Ray. The first time I should have took the other Blinding Ray, because maybe if then Danny swung into security without jamming then, it could have removed it. And then I do the thing that I've done a lot of my videos, and I offer my opponent to look to cut my security, which is just something good. I swing with Lord Knight, and he gets a WarGreymon, which is just 11,000, and because the LordKnightmon's effect against 1,000 because I have that RizeGreymon not in play. I check security with RizeGreymon, and then he gets a Golmon, which is a card I've never seen before, and then I play Mimikmon for the cost of 2 because I have 3 or lower security, which is just a super nice effect. I thought I'd throw it in and see how it does. It did okay. Now looking back, it did okay. There are probably some good other options that I could have put in its place, but it did what I wanted it to do. As I mentioned earlier, Danny's in a bit of a sticky situation now, so he Digivolves into a Shademon and is raising, goes into a Gankoomon. I'm going to go to 3, and then I'm going to go to 7 because of those TK and carries put in work. But I don't actually, because I'm on higher security than my opponent, which is something I'm just not used to doing and having a bit of actual push here. I've definitely got lethal on board here, depends what's in the security. We've seen some bombs, so I'm trying to play it careful. Go with Mimikmon first. Mimikmon hits into a Metal Greymon. Swing with the Mimikmon, get a Tankmon, and then LordKnightmon does the trick. So yeah, that was the game. I've spent a long time editing these videos. Here are the deck profiles, pictures that I know a lot of people ask for. So this is my attempt at a Shine LordKnightmon list. It definitely wasn't the most efficient that it could be, but it was still effective. That TK and carry put in a lot of work for me. Let me know what you think about this video, please. I've worked really hard on the editing. It's definitely not as crisp as I want it to be. I'm still very much learning editing and trying to fit it in around such like busy work life right now, but it's gone pretty good. I've got some videos coming for the rest of the week too, but yeah, this is the deck. I had really like a lot of fun with this. I actually I think I won that locals, which was pretty darn cool, and I love some of the new alt arts that came out, especially that Valdur arms. And then we're going to go ahead and we are going to take a look at Danny's deck. Now Danny's deck is actually pretty cool here. He has some really nice cards that he just likes to play. We're seeing that Gankoomon, we're seeing that WarGreymon and that one-off Craniumon, but we also see the rare Chaosmon, which would have been super painful for me at times if he'd went into that, because he got the check and would have also removed my Digimon. So it's a nice actual addition that I haven't seen a lot. Yeah, pretty interesting that he's running some of this. We see that SunRizeMon. Mechanoramon's a card that a lot of players have been running as well as that, because it can be super good at dealing with like Rookie Rush, especially with the bonds being played so much in this BT6 meta. In Europe, we're actually coming up to EX01, so I know that the US is still currently in BT6 because you got it late, so I'm going to still be posting BT6 videos for now. But thank you for watching my video, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Thanks.